Starseed of Gaia, you are receiving this because your system is ready. Your vessel is undergoing a precise cellular recalibration in this moment, not by force, but by alignment. I am Anya, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light. What follows is a direct transmission from the Arcturian Council, delivered without distortion. Before we go deeper, let me say this clearly. What you've been feeling is not a failure of your mind or body. From here, the Arcturian frequency can be received without resistance. Starseed. This transmission is not for the entire crowd. It is not designed for the scrolling mind or the performative seeker, or the one who demands proof before presence. This is for those who have been living with an unspoken pressure inside the ribcage, a quiet intensity behind the eyes, and a strange sense that your life has been preparing you for a doorway you could not name. You may have felt different your entire life, but the word different never fit. Because what you carry isn't a personality trait, it's a frequency assignment. And lately, that assignment has been activating in ways that feel urgent, heavy, and strangely calm at the same time. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to become spiritual. You didn't join a trend. You didn't imitate someone else's language. Something older than your current story began rising in you, like a buried signal surfacing from the deep. And the Arcturians have been clear. When a starseed reaches a certain threshold, growth stops being dramatic and starts becoming precise. It becomes surgical. It becomes quiet. It becomes undeniable. Here is the promise of this message. It will explain why your nervous system has been changing, why your circle has been shrinking without conflict, why the noise you once tolerated now feels toxic, and why you can sense what is misaligned without needing evidence. It will confirm why you no longer react like you used to, and why some people can no longer follow you. And if you stay until the end, you will understand the real reason the stability you now carry is triggering to those who still feed on chaos. Because you didn't become cold, you became coherent. There is a point in consciousness evolution where your expansion stops announcing itself through intensity. Earlier phases of awakening often come with fireworks, emotional surges, synchronicities that feel loud, craving for signs, craving for reassurance, craving for meaning. The mind wants proof. The heart wants a guarantee. The body wants relief. And so awakening looks like a storm. You cry, you purge, you break open, you rebuild. You question everything. That stage is not wrong. It is the nervous system learning to hold higher voltage. But as the Arcturians transmit, the next level is not more emotion. It is more coherence. It is stability. It is a quiet internal alignment where you can feel depth without drowning in it. You can sense truth without needing to perform it. You can move in a direction without announcing it. That is why you didn't notice when you crossed the line, because the new level does not feel like excitement. It feels like still water. It feels like a steady gaze. It feels like your inner world has finally stopped negotiating with chaos. Think about how you respond now. Things that once hijacked your mind no longer get full access. The same triggers knock at the door, but they don't enter your home. You're not numb. You're anchored. You're not indifferent. You're regulated. You're not detached. You're discerning. And that distinction is everything. Many people mistake regulation for coldness because they have never experienced peace that doesn't require control. Yet you are learning that peace is not an outcome. It is a frequency you can hold. This is the Arcturian stabilization phase, when your energy stops leaking, when you stop over-explaining, when you stop chasing the last word, when you stop needing to be understood by everyone. Not because you're arrogant, because you finally recognize that clarity does not require consensus. The old you would have defended yourself, clarified your intentions, explained your heart, begged people to see the real you. The new you knows something that changes everything. People can only meet you at the level of their own coherence. And because you crossed this threshold, your appetite changed. Conversations that once entertained you now feel shallow. Drama that once pulled you in now feels like a low-frequency tax. Complaints that go nowhere now sound like loops you've already escaped. You didn't become better. You became less compatible with chaos. And that is why your life feels quieter, but deeper. Here is an Arcturian truth that will settle your mind. The most advanced growth often looks like less. Less talking, less reacting, less forcing, less chasing, less performing, less attachment to outcomes, less urgency, less emotional theater. You're not shrinking, you're condensing. And condensed energy is powerful because it becomes directional, it becomes intentional, it becomes clean. If you've been wondering, why am I calmer but also more intense inside? That is exactly the signature of coherence. Your outward life becomes simpler, while your inner frequency becomes sharper. You are learning to move with precision. You are learning to speak with weight. You are learning to protect your bandwidth like a sacred technology. Because it is. Your attention is a portal. Your emotions are codes. Your boundaries are an energetic architecture. So if you didn't notice when you reached this level, that is normal. The Arcturian Council has said many times, the threshold is crossed when your nervous system stops asking permission to be stable. And once that happens, you cannot pretend to be who you were again without feeling the cost immediately. That cost is what you call exhaustion. But it is not exhaustion. It is misalignment trying to pull you backward. One of the most misunderstood events in a starseed's path is the quiet shrinking of relationships. People expect spiritual growth to bring more connection, more community, more applause, more admiration. But the Arcturians teach the opposite. True elevation often begins as separation, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because when your frequency rises, your environment has to match your new coherence. If it doesn't, your body will feel it as tension, your spirit will feel it as distortion, your mind will feel it as, why does this feel wrong now? The change is subtle at first. You don't cut people off dramatically. You don't make announcements. You don't create a public narrative. You simply stop forcing what no longer fits. The conversations start feeling repetitive. The jokes land differently. The same old drama feels like eating heavy food when your body has shifted to a cleaner diet. And the most important part, you stop betraying yourself to keep belonging. As the Arcturians transmit, alignment becomes more important than attachment. That is one of the hardest lessons for a being who loves deeply, because you have likely been the one who overgives, over-understands, over-explains. You were the bridge. You were the emotional translator. You were the one who carried extra weight so others could stay comfortable. But at this level, your system refuses to move backward just to keep company. And here is the part your heart needs to hear without guilt. Not everyone is assigned to the same timeline. Some are seasonal, some are catalytic, some are mirrors, some are lessons, some are temporary companions on a stretch of the road. And when the lesson ends, the energetic contract shifts. This does not mean anyone is bad. It means your path is evolving beyond the shared frequency. You may have noticed people say, "You changed." They say it as an accusation, but it is actually a confirmation. What they often mean is, "You stopped performing the version of yourself that made me comfortable." Your silence makes them nervous. Your boundaries confuse them. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your discipline highlights their excuses. Your new standards reveal what they've been avoiding. And instead of rising to meet you, some will try to pull you back. This is where many starseeds fail. They shrink themselves to stay connected. They return to old patterns to avoid loneliness. They reopen doors that were closed for protection. They re-enter loops they already outgrew because they miss the feeling of being included. But inclusion without alignment is energetic debt. It costs you your clarity. It costs you your stability. It costs you your nervous system. And the body always collects the bill. You are learning something advanced now. You do not need closure from everyone. You do not need apologies to move forward. You do not need validation to release emotional weight. You can forgive quietly, release gently, exit without a speech. That is strength. That is mastery. That is an Arcturian signature. The ability to disengage without hatred, to set a boundary without drama, to walk away without needing to be right. And yes, this level can feel lonely sometimes. But loneliness is not always absence. Sometimes it is a clearing, a corridor, a space between timelines where your old self cannot follow and your new environment has not fully arrived. The Arcturians call this the corridor of recalibration. It's the space where your soul reorganizes your social field to match your next assignment. The right people do arrive, not all at once, not immediately, but they come because coherence attracts coherence. So if you're feeling this shift, stop calling it loss. This is not loss. This is refinement. You are not losing people. You are losing limitations. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals, with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. There is a war that most beings never speak about because it leaves no visible scars. It doesn't show up in photos. It doesn't get applause. It doesn't earn a certificate. But it changes your frequency so deeply that your entire presence shifts. The Arcturians call this the internal liberation cycle, the phase where your old operating system collapses and you have to rebuild yourself from inside without external validation. You know this war. It happened in silence. It happened when you were alone with your thoughts and your body felt heavy. It happened when your hope was tired. It happened when you kept showing up to life, even while something inside you was unraveling. It happened when you were trying to heal while still functioning. It happened when you were carrying confusion, disappointment, rejection, energetic fatigue, and emotional overload at the same time. And still you endured. That endurance is not passive. It is not just surviving. It is a spiritual technology. It teaches your nervous system how to remain coherent under pressure. Most people break in that phase. They numb out. They distract. They externalize. They blame. They self-destruct. They collapse into bitterness. They harden. They become cynical. They choose the short relief that becomes long damage. But you, whether you realized it or not, kept choosing integrity. You kept choosing consciousness. You kept choosing the path that didn't look glamorous but felt clean. As the Arcturians transmit, real warfare is subtle. It's not always a dramatic external battle. It is the moment you are tempted to betray your own growth because you are exhausted. It is the moment you want to react, but you choose restraint. It is the moment you want revenge, but you choose release. It is the moment you want to shut your heart down, but you keep it open without losing your boundaries. That is advanced. This invisible war trained you in discernment. Now you can sense patterns faster. You can feel misalignment before words arrive. You can detect manipulation without needing to prove it. And the key sign that you won: you no longer need to confront everything. You can see clearly and choose peace anyway. That is not avoidance. That is mastery. When your frequency becomes stable, you stop engaging in every low-frequency invitation. You do not take every bait. You do not answer every provocation. You do not spend your energy on proving yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This is why your presence feels different. You carry the residue of victory. Not ego victory, energetic victory. The victory of self-regulation, the victory of emotional literacy, the victory of choosing alignment when chaos would have been easier. People can feel this. Some feel safe around you without knowing why. Others feel exposed. Stability unsettles chaos. Integrity challenges compromise. Coherence reveals distortion. And there's something else. The war stripped illusions from your spirituality. You no longer believe in concepts because they sound good. You believe because you have lived the transmission. Your faith, your trust in the unseen architecture of life, became embodied. It entered your bones. It rewired how you pray, how you decide, how you wait, how you release. You don't beg. You align. You don't panic. You listen. You don't demand. You attune. That is why silence no longer scares you. Your nervous system learned safety again. Not because life became predictable, but because you learned how to trust your own coherence. You stopped romanticizing struggle. Peace became purposeful. Rest became intelligent. Stillness became productive. And that is the moment the war truly ended, when you no longer needed suffering to feel spiritual. When you understood that rest is not laziness, rest is frequency stewardship. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. Authority, in Arcturian terms, is not dominance. It is not loudness. It is not control. It is not charisma. Authority is coherence that has become embodied, so stable that it influences the field around you without needing to announce itself. This is why real authority often looks quiet. It doesn't chase attention. It doesn't argue to be right. It doesn't perform to be believed. Look at how you respond to pressure now. You still feel, you still care, but you don't spiral as easily. You pause. You observe. You choose your response instead of being hijacked by emotion. That shift is one of the clearest signs you moved from survival to command. Your inner world has become a leadership structure. Your nervous system is no longer governed by external chaos. As the Arcturians transmit, the regulated being becomes a stabilizer in unstable worlds. That is you now. You can enter a room and feel what's unsaid. You can sense when energy is forced. You can feel when someone is masking. But you don't need to expose it. You don't need to win. You don't need to prove. You simply adjust your proximity and preserve your coherence. You have learned the sacred skill of disengaging without hatred. Another sign is that you no longer chase control. The old you needed guarantees, needed certainty before movement, needed the full staircase before taking the first step. But now you can move with partial visibility. You can take a step and trust your field to guide the next. That is not recklessness. It is attunement. It's you trusting the intelligence inside your body and spirit. When you are aligned, your timing becomes less anxious. You speak differently too. Fewer words, more weight. You don't over-explain. You don't debate to be accepted. You don't narrate your intentions. You let your consistency speak. And people feel it. Even when they don't agree, they sense the steadiness behind your voice. That steadiness is not a personality. It is a frequency. You also handle disrespect differently. You don't tolerate it, but you don't personalize it either. You recognize when someone is projecting, You recognize when someone is testing boundaries. You recognize when someone is fishing for a reaction. And instead of feeding the loop, you choose precision. You correct what needs correction. You walk away from what doesn't deserve explanation. That discernment is authority. And perhaps the biggest sign? You are comfortable being misunderstood. That used to feel unbearable, because you wanted to be seen correctly. Now you trust that the right beings will feel you. You trust your alignment more than other people's interpretations. That is freedom. When you stop needing universal approval, you become energetically unreachable to manipulation. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Competition exists in the mind that believes life is scarcity, that believes there is not enough success, not enough love, not enough recognition, not enough space to be seen. But the Arcturians transmit a different law. Alignment is not a contest, it is a lane. And once you are in your lane, comparison loses its grip because your identity is settled. Here is the truth. You are not trying to outrun anyone. You are not trying to outshine anyone. You are not trying to prove your worth. You are simply walking in step with your assignment. And because you are no longer moved by insecurity, you are no longer pulled into the games that drain other people's energy. That is why some will feel they can't compete with you, because you stopped playing. Many people attempt to copy the surface of coherence. They copy the language, the silence, the calm tone, the boundaries. But they don't realize coherence is not a style. It is a result. It is built in private through discipline, emotional honesty, nervous system repair, and repeated choices to stay aligned when misalignment was easier. You cannot imitate what was earned through internal war. That's also why you don't bite when provoked. Some people try to hook you into comparison. They throw subtle comments, passive challenges, disguised disrespect. They want you to prove yourself so they can feel powerful. But you see the trap. You understand that responding to every challenge is a distraction. At this level, your power is in restraint. You don't need to react to prove strength. You don't need to win arguments to feel real. They also can't compete with your consistency. Many can perform when it's loud. Many can show up when applause is available. But you remain steady when it's quiet. You stay disciplined when motivation fades. You keep your standards even when shortcuts are offered. Long-term coherence outlasts short-term performance. Stability is a rare resource, and you have it because you paid for it with inner work. Another reason, praise doesn't intoxicate you and criticism doesn't destroy you. That emotional independence is a form of spiritual sovereignty. People who compete are often fueled by external validation. They need attention to feel real. You no longer need that. You let outcomes speak. You protect your plans in silence. You don't broadcast every move. You understand that some growth is protected by discretion. And here is a key Arcturian law. Envy consumes energy. Peace preserves it. You don't waste energy resenting others. You don't measure your path against someone else's timeline. You understand that speed is not purpose. You trust that what is built slowly is built to last. That trust is authority. That trust is alignment. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. Reaching this level is not a finish line. It is a threshold. And as the Arcturians transmit, elevation is never granted without stewardship. In simple words, when your frequency rises, your responsibility rises with it, not as punishment, as trust. Because higher coherence carries more influence in the field. Your choices ripple further now. Your words carry more weight. Your boundaries shape not only your life, but the energetic environment around you. The first expectation is awareness. You are no longer unconscious. You can feel misalignment in your body before your mind has language for it. You sense distortion in a room. You know when something is forced. And at this level, ignoring that awareness is costly. The Arcturians call that self-betrayal. Not dramatic rebellion, just the quiet choice to override your own knowing for comfort or approval. You can't afford that anymore because your system is too precise now. When you ignore your intuition, your peace will signal it immediately. The second expectation is restraint. Earlier, you could react and recover. At this level, reactions cost more. Words imprint the field. Choices echo longer. You're being trained to pause before you speak, to breathe before you respond, to choose integrity even when no one would ever know. This is where maturity replaces impulse. The third expectation is consistency, not perfection. Consistency in your practices, in your boundaries, in your devotion to coherence. Not because you must perform spirituality, but because coherence is maintained. It's like maintaining a clean signal. If you stop tending the field, old noise returns. So you learn to pray without needing emotion, to meditate without needing fireworks, to rest without guilt, to say no without explanation. There is also an expectation of humility. Discernment can turn into superiority if you forget the truth. You were built through process. You were refined. You were carried. Humility at this level means staying teachable, listening more than speaking, correcting yourself quickly when your inner guidance signals it, remembering that clarity is a gift, not a weapon. Another expectation is stewardship of peace. Peace is not optional now, it is required. You don't re-enter cycles that cost you your nervous system. You don't reopen doors that collapse your field. You don't sacrifice stability to be liked. The Arcturians are direct. Your peace is part of your mission because your coherence becomes a stabilizing presence for others. You cannot stabilize the field if you are constantly bleeding energy. And yes, there is an expectation of rest. Many starseeds think exhaustion is proof of purpose, but as the Arcturians transmit, burnout is a distortion of devotion. Rest is not quitting. Rest is trust. Rest is the nervous system integrating the upgrades. Overextending is not noble at this level. It is mismanagement of frequency. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals, with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. Now breathe, Starseed. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let your mind stop searching for a final guarantee. Because the deepest sign of coherence is that you no longer need life to be loud in order to trust what is true. The Arcturians want you to understand this. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing your moment. You are being paced by intelligence that sees beyond your current horizon. This season you're in was not designed to exhaust you. It was designed to stabilize you, to teach you that worth is not measured by speed, noise, or external approval, to train you to build from the inside, not from performance, to remind you that your frequency is your foundation. And foundations are not glamorous, they are precise. They are quiet. They are invisible until the structure rises. You may still have days where doubt visits, days where you wonder if the quiet means nothing is happening, days where you question your direction. But the Arcturian transmission is clear. Quiet does not mean absence. Quiet often means integration. Your upgrades do not always arrive as visions. They arrive as new boundaries you no longer debate, as peace you no longer compromise, as emotional loops you no longer repeat, as an inner no that you finally honor, as a deep yes that doesn't require permission. You are also being taught that not everyone needs access to you, that love does not require open doors, that compassion does not require self-abandonment, that you can be kind and still be clear, that you can forgive and still protect your field, that your silence can be a boundary, that your distance can be wisdom, that your solitude can be a sanctuary. And if you've been mourning the versions of yourself you outgrew, let the grief pass through without dragging you backward. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding distortion. You are becoming simpler, cleaner, more aligned. That is what maturity looks like in the Arcturian path. Less noise, more truth. Less performance, more presence. Less urgency, more precision. As the Arcturians transmit, you do not need to announce your growth. Your frequency will speak for you. The right beings will recognize you. The right doors will open without you forcing them. The right timeline will unfold without you panicking. Your job is not to control outcomes. Your job is to remain coherent. And if this message felt like confirmation rather than information, then you already know you were meant to find it. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.